Hi, and welcome to Real Trail Talk. I am Donovan D'Souza from The Long Ways Better.
And I'm Mark Pybus from The Life of Pi. Welcome to Insert Giggle here, episode 69. Sorry, we're really childish, but yeah, we've made it this far. And we have a fairly actually recent adventure to talk about.
Yeah, right hot off the presses.
Yeah, so Donovan and I just completed this the previous Saturday to when we're recording, so 3 days after actually getting it done.
Yeah.
Happy to actually say my body is fine. There's no after effects, so
yeah.
it's good. And as you know by the title, it is the Kep Track, which is a really intriguing trail that a lot of people are interested in.
Yeah.
But the logistics of doing it, especially as a hiker, are really hard.
Yeah. So it's one that I've had, every now and then you get someone email or like send a question saying, what do you think of doing the Kep Track as a hike? And I never thought it was a good idea, but obviously I hadn't done it.
Yeah.
So I couldn't say. But this was a trail that I was supposed to do about 10 years ago. This was in hardcore Don era where I just did stupidly, ridiculously difficult things. So the plan was a friend of mine and I were going to ride through the night to Northam and back.
What time of year was this?
Winter.
Okay.
And at the start of it, I asked my friend, I said, when's the last time you cycled? And he said 2 years ago. And so I knew that wasn't going to happen. And we got as far as the end of the
Woolloomooloo, wasn't it?
Woolloomooloo. We got as far as Woolloomooloo, and then he just said, I don't think I can do this.
Yeah.
So, and I asked you the same question for this, and thankfully it was not as
not 2 years.
Not 2 years.
But 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say. When did we do into Nanup? That was August.
Yeah.
So 3 months.
Yeah, that's okay.
There we go.
But you've done a lot of stuff,
hiking,
Yeah.
So I was not reasonably confident I could get through it, but yeah, if I pushed myself, it shouldn't be a problem. And obviously we decided to do this on mountain bikes rather than hiking.
Yes.
Which makes a big difference. So this is also a trail that I had planned to walk several times, not like seriously planning, but like I'd done the logistics. It would be a 3-day trip, including travel time. And originally I'd planned to do this with Sadie because it's dog friendly, going through any national parks. But after riding it, I can see that I would not have enjoyed myself whatsoever. As we'll get into for several reasons, but may as well start
from the start. Yeah.
So originally you had thought it would be good to go Northam to Mundaring Weir, and I kind of pushed back and said, no, I want to go Mundaring Weir to Northam.
Yep.
So
I acquiesced.
Yes, you did. So the logistics of it, you and I drove out, both bikes in the car to Mundaring Weir and parked there, and then Alyssa came and picked us up in Northam in the afternoon. So it adds, an extra 45 minutes to an hour and a half?
It was like an hour and a half from our place to get to Northam. And about 45 minutes. And we live in Bateman, and you're not far from here.
Yeah. So I think it would probably be an hour and a half extra if you had to do a car shuffle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just got to keep that in mind. But we were there by just after 7:30. Picked a beautiful November day.
Yeah. So I guess my biggest worry about this was due to logistical challenges, because we've both had busy schedules in October. We couldn't get it done in October.
Yeah.
And this ended up being in November. And my biggest worry was November in Perth can be horrendously hot. And it was not at all. No. It was rainy, low 20s, cloudy, little bits of sun. I mean, it was a very Melburnian day, I'd say.
Yeah. It was a few showers, low cloud, and then all of a sudden the sun would come out for 20 minutes.
Yeah. So, very different kind of weather. This was the day, actually, that they said that we broke the record for rain in November.
That's good.
Yep.
It's been a cool month. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to Mundaring Weir, which I think it's the official start of the trail, but there's no like big trailhead. There's just that section where there's all those information boards, and the Kep Track just happens to be one of them.
I think the signage for this trail, as we would find later on, is fantastic, particularly from a historical point of view. But on both ends, the trail heads are non-existent.
Yeah.
And that's a really weird thing when you look at the quality of the signage and there's just this missing element to it. So that's something they could do to make it a bit more of a grand statement.
So the Kep Track translated means the water track, but should obviously be Kep Biddy if they were doing it correctly.
Yeah.
And it basically follows the pipeline as it goes from Mundaring out to Northam. So it's quite a feature of the trail, and does make it easy to navigate because you kind of where's the pipeline and have to follow that.
And it is following the old railway line as well. So it is the old rail reserve converted to a cycle trail.
Yeah. And no matter which end you start, there's going to be an uphill, which is not ideal if you haven't cycled in 3 months to start with a slow uphill. But it does utilise the start of the Munda-Biddy.
Yeah, so I do think that it is better starting at the Mundaring end because the descent I think was much, much worse on the other side. But it sort of starts the reverse direction of the first day of the Munda-Biddy from the Mundaring Weir Hotel up to the sculpture park, but not turning on towards the sculpture park. And I feel like this is a really nice part of the trail.
Yeah, I always enjoy this. I did this on the Cat and Mortar, and I mean you follow the bib for a little bit as well, but it kind of zigzags either side of the Weir Road. You get some nice forest, and you get that history with the train line that used to run up that hill. Every now and then. It's pleasant forest despite some recent burning.
Yeah, I think for me what I like about the Jarrah forest through here, and I was heartened that it was as good as I remembered it from when I did the Munda-Biddy section in April, is that the understory just looks nice. Like it looks settled. It looks like, even though yes they've done some burns in the recent past, that the understory has reached an equilibrium that looks tidy and neat. And I really love that look in the Northern Jarrah forests.
Yeah, and especially when you get like a misty, wet, drizzly morning like we got, it just feels damp and wet, and like the lack of a proper canopy kind of doesn't really matter too much.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's kind of good to be in that kind of forest really early because you are doing that climb and you don't really want to be in the elements.
No. Yeah, so that was I think a nice start to the day, and the ascent didn't seem as bad as I thought it would be, because I remember it being a nice downhill, but sometimes a nice downhill can just be quite gradual, and I think going up we realized how gradual it actually was.
Yeah, I mean, there was only a couple of sections where you really had to kick down a few gears and put in some effort. Otherwise, it was just like a slow burn. Yeah, so not too bad. We survived. We made it to the top of the hill.
Yep.
And then joined the Railway Reserves Trail, which is the 47 kilometre thereabouts.
I think it's like 41 for the main loop, and then it's like 60 with the extension to Wooroloo.
And that either side of Great Eastern Highway through the hills, so really well frequented trail with both walkers and cyclists.
Yeah, that's one that I think you could, like I've walked it, and you've walked bits of it as part of the Oxfam.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually quite an enjoyable 40, like for 40 Ks, it's actually quite an enjoyable walk. Though I will say, for anyone walking it, don't wear hiking boots, wear sneakers, because it's compacted ground. Yeah. And it's fatiguing walking with hiking boots. But for cycling, it's outstanding because it's, nice and firm ground. I feel like even though this is an old rail reserve, it seems to be kept quite nicely. Like the reserve seems to have like nice trees and things on either side, except for the section where they've cleared it. Otherwise, it's actually quite a good trail in itself, the railway reserves.
Yeah, because you get those sections where you dip down and you've got the banks either side, and it just seems to have like really nice trees kind of enclosing you. Yeah, it's kind of that like shroud where you can't see either side, which is sometimes is a good thing.
Yeah,
in
this
built-up
suburbia
area. Yeah. But then that section that you'd already done, doing the railway reserves, where you pointed it out, and it's just, you come up to a road and either side is just cleared.
Yeah.
And then there's a big sign saying, property of the Kalamunda or Mundaring men's shed.
Yeah.
They've decided to get their chainsaws out and chop down some trees so they can whittle away.
Yeah, and it's a shame because there were some nice sizable trees, and I always liked that stretch. But otherwise, it's got the nicest, from a fun point of view, it's got the nicest part of the railway reserves that the Kep Track follows as well, where you go downhill a fair bit, and it's a lot of fun.
It is, especially after that long uphill.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, thank God I can rest for a little bit and have some fun.
And that's a pretty easy stretch of track. There's a few road crossings, but otherwise it's I think it's quite enjoyable. And then you reach the junction at Mount Helena.
Yes, and that's where it turns off. And then we were kind of a bit confused because you were going back in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
and then you had to do another hairpin, checking the maps, and it's like, oh no, I found a marker.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a couple of those points, but after a while it just makes sense, like you're following the pipeline.
Yep. Yeah. And I think this bit here is also still quite good. Like, I think the ride quality remains enjoyable up until Chidlow. It's very much similar kind of scenery. The trail has been maintained to the same standard as the Railway Reserves Heritage Trail, because it is part of the Railway Reserves Heritage Trail, even though it's not part of the main loop.
Yeah. And there is the option here to duck off to Lake Leschenaultia if you're feeling very energetic or confident in your abilities.
Yeah, so I wonder how far that would be.
I'd say it'd be no more than a couple of Ks.
Okay.
Detour.
You probably should have done it.
Actually, yeah, I think we should have. Like, my legs at the end were good, but had you have said that at Baker's Hill, I would have told you no. But they have built the new mountain bike park area at Lake Leschenaultia, so if you want to go do some flowing single track, there's the option to do that. Or if you want to break here, you can stop in at the Chidlow Tavern.
Yeah, and Chidlow has had a little pump track at the park, which was fun. It's a very small track, very sort of, I don't want to say rinky-dink, but it's not the most like constructed.
It didn't look like Common Ground Trails
no.
constructed. Yeah, we both had a little bit of a go, which is, yeah. I mean, my bike's not the lightest bike, and I was carrying like 3 liters of water and stuff in my backpack, but I don't know, it'd have to be a lot fitter and have a lighter bike to be able to do that one properly.
Yeah, then from there I think the trail kind of lowers in quality.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the stretches where we both remarked around the same time, I'd hate to be hiking this section.
Yeah,
it's long, kind of uninteresting, kind of railway bashing is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think this is something that I would say to a lot of people is, from a cycling point of view, if you're putting away the kilometers, sometimes these sort of boring stretches are not so terrible. Like, I think it wasn't the best fun on a bike, but on foot it would really depend on what your mentality is about hiking. Some people, especially, my younger self included, would have said the kilometers is all that's important. So some people really enjoy that aspect of it. Sometimes that just getting into a rhythm is important, and the scenery is not of consideration. But from a hiking point of view, this is not great. This is stuff that from a scenery point of view is not great.
Yeah, I think what makes this such a bad section in comparison to everything else is, like, the times we were riding together. Like, I think at one point I looked ahead and I turned to you and I was like, if you were hiking this, that's your next 20-30 minutes there, everything that you can see.
Yeah.
Which, to me as a hiker, like, that really defeats me sometimes when the road is that straight and boring. And it's flat as well. It's not like there's hills. That would get me down. Whereas on the bike, you could kind of just be like, right, put your head down, do your 15 to 20 k's an hour along here and just get it over with.
Yeah, that's probably 5 minutes, not 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And if it's an hour, that's maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah. And it was a good section, actually, where we could kind of just get into a rhythm and just ride.
Yeah.
I think you were a bit ahead of me at this stage because I maxed out with my gears for what speed I could go. But yeah, it's just one of those sections you have to endure. It's not going to be, especially for this type of trail, it's not going to be high quality all the way.
And I mean, I feel from a rail reserve's point of view that the ending at Wirraloo is a bit anticlimactic because that park compared to the Chidlow Park is a little not exciting.
It's okay. It's got some new facilities.
Yeah, I guess it was okay, but they didn't feel like if you did the whole loop starting there, it feels a bit.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Like you arrive there and you're like, well, why am I here?
Yeah,
because you're kind of not anywhere near like bits of that small hamlet. It's just a park.
That's right. Yeah, because if you compare that to the two main trailheads, I reckon for the loop itself. The main one is the Sculpture Park, which has that awesome train station with the gauging stuff there. And then the other one is the one that's near John Forest, where the tunnel is, the Swan View area. And that's got an old train station there as well.
Yeah.
And those are such grand statements. And yes, I know Wirraloo probably wasn't that grand a place, but they've done nothing to make it a grand place.
Yeah. I think there's some old infrastructure there, maybe like an old water filling station, and they've got a sign, but yeah, there's not much there to indicate that this is like of significance.
Yeah.
But going into this section, you were quite happy because we transitioned into the Wandoo forest.
Yes. Yeah, that was a really cool thing, is that suddenly, you get away from that hills, Jarrah, and into Wandoo, which, while a bit on the scrappy side, is always a welcome change.
Yeah, especially because around this time the sun came out as well. It kind of felt like a nice riding day.
It felt like quite a different day than the morning, which was very grey.
And then Wirraloo onwards, we stopped for a bit of a break, and I had some leftover pizza. I really needed to refuel.
Yep.
And then on to Baker's Hill. This was probably my toughest section. To get through.
It was basically a slow up the whole way for a fair bit of it. Although we had some interesting things, like we saw those interesting birds.
Yeah, I haven't yet to Google those. I was looking at the photos on Sunday night.
Yeah.
I just didn't Google those. They're like turkeys.
They look like turkeys.
Yeah.
They have like the gobbly neck thing going on. And there was just 3 of them, and they were the kind of weird birds.
Yeah, one of them didn't want to move off the track too much and made a bit of a fuss, but yeah, that was a weird moment.
Yeah.
And then there was that old, I'm not even sure what it was. Oh, it was a smelting plant, wasn't it? Or
the foundry.
Foundry, that's right. Yeah. So you don't actually get to go in and have a look at it, but it does cause you to deviate onto the road for a little bit, which was a good relief.
Yeah. It was nice to be able to go, oh, look, speed.
Yeah. It's such a difference coming off the gravel and then going onto the road. Like, you don't think it's going to be much because it's compact gravel.
Yeah.
But it does make a difference.
And I think that this is, again, a sign that this is really a trail for bikes. Because on foot, this would be terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, agree. And, yeah, like, you'd see the foundry, but you'd see that for like 15 minutes while you're on a road, traffic going by. Yeah, I would not enjoy that at all. But yeah, it's just kind of, then you cross a couple of roads and then you're on that really long stretch. I think it's near some power lines going towards Baker's Hill, and that was a big slog as well.
That was probably, for me, the least exciting part of the whole thing, because it was basically a power line road that you follow for ages.
With just like thickets next to you, so you couldn't really see anything. It wasn't nice forest.
Yeah.
It was just dodging puddles on this kind of, lonesome trail.
Yeah. So this, again, would be one of those stretches where if you were on foot, I think you'd be questioning why you were here.
Yeah.
Not a great walking experience, I think.
Yeah, I think I stopped here because I was like, I'll get some photos, because you could see Baker's Hill, or a hill in the distance. I was like, I'll get Don in the distance, zoomed in, be him, this pretty straight trail into the hill. And I was like, good. And then I was like, now I have to catch up to him. And thankfully you'd stopped not too far away, but yeah, it was a big slog going into Baker's Hill. I just remember looking at the elevation. I'm just like, damn it.
Yeah.
But there was actually some cool bits going into Baker's Hill. There was that, I'm going to call it a clay quarry.
Oh yeah, the last just before then, it looked like it looked like they'd carved the trail into the railway into this like clay soil. They just went, oh well, rather than going up, we'll just cut it.
Yeah.
And probably because they thought, oh, we can use this for something else. And it just looked really cool.
There's some interesting colours there as well, and like some of the trees that have then sprouted up as well.
Yeah.
I think that was a real like eye opener. Like, wow, something different.
Yeah, that probably was, I guess, the start of where things got better. Because I think that we certainly felt things got better from Baker's Hill onwards, but really this was probably the start of interesting things to see for a while.
Yeah. Although not great on a wet day because there was lots of puddles and the clay loam kind of thing. It was like white and then it was really thick, and then as you went on, it just sprayed up into you. And, you remarked that my back and my backpack looked like I had a bit of an accident after a while.
Yes, quite an explosive one.
Yeah. But we made it to Baker's Hill, which is probably going to say the biggest settlement you come across.
Yeah, that's only the most important because of the pie shop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very famous. There is also a brewery on the trail which says cyclists and hikers welcome, but you had your sights set on the bakery. Yeah,
because I've driven down here a few times, and the bakery is sort of quite iconic, being Baker's Hill, and very good. Like I actually think that they're a very good bakery, and I had a mini 10 on a plate because I wasn't feeling quite 10 on a plate hungry.
Yep.
But I had a Kransky and a chicken and mushroom pie that was very good. And you didn't have a life of pie, but you had a life of pasty.
Life of pasty. Maybe that can be an offshoot I'll do. But yeah, the vegetarian options there are really, really good. Like there's over half a dozen different options you can take, and I went for the sweet potato and spinach pasty, which was really delicious after 40-something Ks of riding.
Yeah.
And it was actually a very fortuitous time for us to stop as well, because it really started to rain quite heavily as we were eating. Like
as we got there, it was grey, but it was a slight drizzle, but nothing, nothing to be worried about. And as we were sitting down eating, it just bucketed down.
Yeah.
And then when we left, it got good again.
Yeah. Really good timing. Because we both had our cameras around our shoulders/necks.
Yeah.
And I'd taken my old camera through some pretty bad weather, so I wasn't too worried, but I was thinking in the back of my head, I hope it doesn't rain too hard on this ride. I don't want to lose 2 cameras in a couple of months.
And I actually put on my raincoat, and then I went, nah, this is not going to be bad.
You put it on, the sun came out, and then you're like, no.
That's just too hot.
No, we'll take it off. Yeah. So after a bit of a break, leaving Baker's Hill, downhill, which was good. We were looking forward to that after the break.
Yeah.
And down towards Clackline.
And the trail here was actually really nice. It was through, through thickets, but the thickets were a bit more interesting, I reckon.
Yeah. It kind of had like a wetlandsy type feel to it.
Yeah.
The caveat that there were open farmland to your left, so every now and then you'd get these sweeping views, but then you'd be back into, I'm going to say casuarina thickets. So it was definitely a she oak feel about it. But then just after that we had the bogans.
Oh yeah, in the four-wheel drive.
Yeah, in the four-wheel drive. I could hear a noise behind. I was like, oh, someone's coming, like a dirt biker or something. And I turn around and there's this guys driving on this narrow trail.
Yeah.
And I was like,
oh, we're not following you, mate.
Yeah, mate.
But you're not supposed to. The railway reserve, especially on the other side of the road, it was much, much narrower. Like it really wasn't a car wide. So what they were doing in essence was sort of widening the trail.
And like you're running parallel to a Great Eastern Highway that's no more than 100 meters away.
Yeah, and there's the back street of Baker's Hill ran parallel as well. So it's not like
just local bogan idiots.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't get run down or shot or followed, as they said.
Yeah.
And then down to Clackline Refractory.
Yeah.
I think that's the official name for it.
Yeah.
Which when I did the Walk GPS Clackline walk, I was looking through the hashtag, and I'd seen people visit this old brickworks, and it looked quite cool. I was disappointed I didn't visit it on the first go, but it actually goes right past it, and it's a really fun place to explore. Like, we don't have many of those in WA.
Yeah.
And it's fairly well intact for what it is.
It's, yeah, when I was younger, I was really into the sort of urban exploration sort of stuff, but there's not a lot. You know, back then you could break into the old Treasury building if you were particularly keen. There was, South Freo Power Station, East Perth Power Station, but not a lot of options. And this was one that's actually quite a substantial buildings, I should say, actually.
Yeah, because there's that front bit that has like the main kilns and the big tower, and then there's a back bit which has more buildings, and I'm guessing a warehouse type thing, which had some interesting graffiti on there.
Yeah, some very expletive-filled graffiti.
Yeah.
Some of it quite... I guess quite philosophical in its way.
Yep. And then further added on to be a bit more crass.
Yeah, like someone obviously had like a moment of just live your life and live a good, life, and someone added in their comments on what they thought a good life was.
Yeah. Effing bitches.
Yeah.
So yeah, we might have to put warnings on the written posts about that. Yeah. I think I'll have to share some of those photos.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be sharing some of those. Yeah. But yeah, definitely worth, it's only a short way off the track.
Like 50 meters maybe?
Yeah, and it also started raining when we were inside as well. Just, again, perfect timing.
Perfect timing, yeah. And it does show use of people maybe using it as a home every now and then.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when we were there was no one there, and...
Yeah.
It was just like it wasn't even creepy. Like, even in the dark, it was just kind of like, this is cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would have been nervous because there were some more like office building things we didn't explore.
Yeah.
And that probably is more like where someone would want to live.
Yeah.
And I'd be worried if I was there by myself. But as it was fine.
Yeah. Just be careful of the broken glass everywhere if you're riding your bike.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And then on from Clackline, you actually run parallel to the nature reserve there, which I didn't realise this went so close to the border, because you start the Clackline walk next to someone's home or farm. So that was cool to see that area and kind of remind yourself of what a nice area that is to walk in.
It's nice just seeing that, like, they've got the little creek line and then the hill, and that was really nice to see with all the trees there.
Yeah. And the creek actually had water in it as well.
And they had that big train station as well, the platforms.
Yeah, which was odd because if the brickworks was there, like, around the time the railway was, you'd think it'd be a bit closer.
Yeah.
Because it kind of isn't near anything, that railway station.
But it's, like, substantial because it's multi-platform.
Yeah.
It looked like it was, like, a 4-line platform.
Yeah. Really cool to ride up.
Yeah.
A bit overgrown with the grasses, but it's, really cool spot. So, and then you go on to another really cool feature around Clackline, which is you cross under the highway and then you get a really, really good view of the timber bridge, which it was some weird claim that they had.
It was the longest curved downhill
timber bridge.
In Australia.
But then couldn't you also, I was thinking about this after we did it, couldn't you also claim it's the longest curved uphill bridge as well if you're going in the other direction?
Yeah, it's not like it's a one-way trail.
Yeah.
So that was really cool though. You get to see it because you're right underneath it, and it's a substantial bridge.
Yeah.
Really beautiful, and I think that was one of the highlights of the day for me, for sure.
Because driving on Grayson Highway, like, you have no idea that that's a timber bridge because you drive over it, obviously. But yeah, seeing it underneath was really cool with the crisscrossing pillars and
and the splashdown for the crossing of the creek.
Yeah, so Don's like, there was a bridge just off to the right. And Donovan decided very early, no, we're going through the splash route. So I was the guinea pig. I went first. Donovan took photos. And then I was up on the other side and got my camera ready. And then Don did it. I actually got some good ones of you.
Awesome.
You got like, one frame is you just like worried about the thing. And the next frame, you've got a big smile on your face. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's that cool platypus, what was it called? Platypus Pool
rock?
Or something? Or Platypus Rock. Yeah.
Which didn't look like a platypus.
No.
Wasn't one there that we saw.
Yeah.
But did almost broke my ankle slipping on some mossy rock. I kind of was trying to get a better photo, and then all of a sudden it gave way, and I had to jump down into the little crevice bit.
Well, you know what Mark would say?
Don't walk on the moss.
Yeah.
But it's boulder moss where it's
that
like
shaggy, dry kind of
on the edge there. So
yeah.
I'll excuse myself.
But it's a surprising spot because it's quite a nice viewpoint. And you just don't think it's there, like it's got a little bit of a pool there, which I imagine in winter would be quite a substantial pool.
Because it's the site of the old school for Clackline, which I imagine used to be a bigger town, but now is just a rest stop on the highway. And there's that pile of rocks with the lion head on top. I didn't quite read what the significance of that was, but must have been to do with the school.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a bit of a break there just because we were busy photographing everything. And then on to the road bashing. I wouldn't say bashing, but road cycling.
Yeah, it was 6.5 kilometers of road. So this is, I think, if you're on foot, this is a big caveat of, if you're going to do this, just remember.
Yeah. So if you've done the Clackline Walk GPS walk, you realise because the Clackline's on your left of Great Eastern Highway, but you have to turn off, I think it's Spencer Brook Road, and then make an immediately left, and then you loop under the highway. And this is where the Kep Track follows.
Yep.
It was actually very pleasant. Like, it's not a bad thing, road cycling. Like, you found this on the Munda where some of these stretches are actually a welcome relief.
Oh, yeah, because you get faster speeds. And also, if it's nice farmland scenery, it doesn't matter. It's nice, it can be quite enjoyable.
Yeah. And this is actually, when I pictured doing the Kep Track, this is all I pictured is like a wide track with wide country, rolling hills. I'd pictured them a little greener, but at the time we were doing it, I also pictured them as yellow, or golden as they were. And it was really, really nice. And the sun was out again. A little bit of an uphill because this is the start of a fairly hilly section compared to what we'd already done. And it was just enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And then we got some fun downhills as we you go near Clackline, then you can see Beaubekine, and what goes up must come down. So struggling up, I think we stopped a few times to take photos and then really enjoyed that downhill. I think we hit 40 something kilometers an hour. Yeah,
it's nice and fast and very, very good. Like if you got those ups and you get it down, then it's always a nice day.
And it's down on road as well, which makes it better because you got the rolling resistance is less.
Yes,
so you can kind of enjoy it a bit more.
Yeah, there's not like ruts where you get a bit scared.
Yeah. And I could take photos while riding. So this is one thing that I experimented with because I realized I couldn't stop as much as I wanted to if I was hiking. So I had the camera with the lens off on my front, and I just kind of lifted it a bit and click. So I think I looked through them, and I've got some good ones around this section of view and front going down the hill. But then we hit the hills of Beaubekine and another up and another kind of error on my part because I looked at the elevation chart and I was like, right, we're at the top of the second hill. Turns out we're only at the top of the first hill.
Yeah.
It's a bit demoralizing.
Yeah, so that was a bit like and also I get a bit antsy when I know Alyssa's waiting for us, and I knew that based on the time that we were taking that we weren't going to get there for the time that we we said that we'd be there after 2, and Alyssa said, oh, it's alright, I'll be there at 1:30, and we probably got in, what time did we get in?
About 3.
About
just
3. Yeah, just before 3. So I always that sort of sets a clock in my head of you're late.
Yeah.
So that with the and this is actually still the first hill sort of set me off, and I was a bit sort of demoralized around that point of it.
Because it's a nice section, but then you kind of get towards it's near the water tanks. And you rejoin the pipeline again, and the trail becomes really sketchy. It's not smooth as it was on the railway reserves. And it's just kind of bumpy, and then you're kind of going up and down and up and down. And you just kind of, I want it to be over, but I kind of wanted something really cool before the end.
Yeah.
which the water tanks kind of provide. You get onto that single track and it improves.
Yeah, from the water tanks onwards, it was actually quite a nice ride. A lot of downhill, a lot of single track. Some of it was pretty sketchy though.
Oh, because you look at the elevation and it just looks like it goes straight down, and it kind of does, but in perspective, you're dropping a fair amount of elevation over a short time, and it was a vehicle track, wasn't it? But there was a heavy rut in the middle, and then all of a sudden you'd get this eroded like diagonal going across. So you had to pick your line.
Yes.
And I remember at that time I'm just like, I'm either gonna have a really big accident here, or I'm just going to be fine.
Yeah. And also, this is pea gravel. So, I've fallen 3 times on pea gravel doing the Munda, so I'm a bit scared. And at full speed downhill, even, I felt like I was at full speed even though I had the brakes on the whole way. And having all these diagonal ruts that are across the main rut, it was fun but a bit disconcerting.
Yeah. My only thought was, if I see like a big rock, or if I place a wheel at the wrong angle as I'm hitting one of those ruts, it's all over.
Yeah.
But we survived, and
yeah,
I don't know. I actually kind of still prefer doing that bit downhill than going up it. I think you'd probably have to walk up that bit.
I think so. Yes, it was probably a bit too steep and too loose. Because yes, maybe if you're an awesome cyclist, you can push up, but you're gonna still struggle with the fact that it'll just churn the pea gravel.
But then arriving kind of near Northam, you kind of get the sense you're near a town, and there's that cool section with the windmill, and that single track next to the golden field. I really enjoyed that. Couple of wandoo trees around there. And then you arrive in Northam, and I'd had the map ready, and we followed the markers that were really good, and there was a little explanation board, and it's like, cross the river here, and there was a big caution, bridge not in use sign anymore. Yeah,
and the bridge looks substantially damaged. It wasn't like, it's been checked by an engineer who says it's now deemed unsafe. It's like, no, this is significantly damaged and looks unsafe.
Yeah. So luckily you're fairly close to town. You can pick a way through. So we joined up with the main road, and then luckily found Alyssa there who said that the trail had started there according to her map. And I kind of wanted to go into Northam, just to get the river and see everything. And I could see kind of in your face, you're like, and Alyssa was kind of like, Don.
I mean, I was okay going into town, but I know you wanted to go even further.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the suspension bridge, but
I think we should probably call it a day.
Yeah, as soon as we reached that first bridge, and then that was the point my camera battery decided to die, so I was fiddling around in my bag to get the spare one out, and I was just like, I'm not making this situation any better. But yeah, we finished up just near the new Amok Island mural on the edge of what I'm assuming is an old warehouse or mill right by the river.
Yep. And the bridge has got nice views. The Avon, as you and I were saying, it was a lot wider than we imagined it would be at this point.
Yeah. Because York also is the Avon River, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, and that's much, much smaller, even though they're fairly close. This was wide. Like, you consider how narrow the Avon River is around Walyoonga and the Avon Valley National Park.
Yep.
It's just weird that it's that wide. I'd love to see it in the middle of summer to see if it's any like shallower. Because where does that water come from?
You would think it must be, right?
Like, you're a fair way east, and it's dry country. Like, all the creeks that barely run during winter.
Yeah. Because it wouldn't be like the Swan where it's brackish and you get seawater coming in. So there's nothing to backfill it that way. Yeah. So yeah, it must be drier.
I'd love to know where it actually gets narrower, because even the Swan River around like Swan Valley, that's really narrow.
Yeah, and yet it's really broad there and northern. Yeah,
lots of seabirds around as well. We saw a spoonbill and Eurasian coots. It was quite cool there.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then we're into Northam, and according to Alyssa, everything had shut by, what was it, like 2:00 anyway.
Yeah, so she came in early to have a look around, and she was like, there was nothing to see.
And this was a Saturday as well, so you'd think prime shopping and whatnot for the town. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And we were saying, it's hard to know the right thing here because no people probably don't go because there's a view that there's nothing to see, and therefore shops don't open. But then if things were open, would people go? And it's that hard chicken and the egg thing with that.
Yeah. I think, especially like the bigger centres like Albany, I think it should just be open anyway. And Northam's a fairly big town for the area. But then again, like York is open like a bit later than 2 o'clock because they know they're getting the tourists in. Whereas Northam, maybe they don't see that. But, they've obviously paid for a Muck Island to go and do a big mural, so maybe they're changing their views. They might become more of a touristy town. Because it is a nice area. Like, you've got the river there, you've got a suspension bridge. I'm sure the town's fantastic. I haven't been there since I was in high school. But yeah.
Suddenly I think they could do more with the trail there because it felt like it just sort of ended abruptly because of that bridge.
Yeah.
And again, there's no trailhead.
And it didn't look like the bridge had only just been in disrepair.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you'd think they're trying to mend that somehow.
Yeah, so, I mean, I hope that does happen because I think it's not a ride I would do again, but it was enjoyable enough.
That's something that threw me at the end of that. That was your immediate reaction. Would you do it again? And you said no straight away.
Yeah.
Like that to me, because long distance cycling, there's no way around it. You're going to have to do a car drop at either end if you want to do a decent chunk. It's not a bad trail. Like, it's 76 kilometers as I mapped it out with some detours.
Yeah.
It's still a really enjoyable day.
It's a decent day trip, but you know me, like, I don't like repeating stuff unless it's really amazing. And it wasn't amazing to me, is how I felt. Like, it would, as I said to you when I finished it, I said I would do the Railway Reserves loop twice over doing this because I just did not find it that. I think there was just such a long stretch of unenjoyable cycling from Chidlow through to Baker's Hill that I wouldn't want to do. But I would happily do Baker's Hill to Northam again.
Yeah.
That would be fine. But as a trail unto itself, I wouldn't do the whole Kep Track ever again, I don't think.
See, if I was riding fit and coming into Baker's Hill wasn't an issue, I think, like, I would love to do that again. It's a good experience. You get to see a fair amount. The riding isn't bad. Like, the trail quality is never so terrible that you're, like, thinking about it. I would do that again.
I think I'm thinking of the Munda-Biddy and the sections there that if you asked me would I do the Munda-Biddy again, I'd say definitely. I would do it again very easily. And this didn't have that same level of scenic quality that I look for in a trail. And I think it felt not dissimilar to the Denmark-Nordland Railway Heritage Trail, which I think is a better trail of what I've done of it, in that there's a lot more nice scenery along there, and it just didn't seem like there's just long stretches of boring. At the moment, the Denmark-Nordland Trail doesn't have a few bridges have been damaged and haven't been fixed, so there's a bit of a long stretch of road riding along the highway, which is not great. But of what I'd seen of it closer to Denmark, it's a really good trail that could be, I think, it really warrants there being some work done on it. And if I think about other heritage trails that are part of the Munda-Biddy, such as the bit that comes out of Denmark on the other side of the river.
No idea.
It goes around the inlet.
Yeah.
There's that bit, and there's also some that you travel getting to Torbay that are, it's a really good quality rail trail. And I see that, and I think that I was comparing it to that. I was looking at it going, oh, but there's all these other rail trails I've done that are actually better, but no one talks about doing those as individual trails because they're part of the Munda-Biddy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't think I would do it again for that. I mean, I'm glad I did it, and I think people should do it at least once. But I don't see this becoming like a regular rotation thing the way,
No.
like I've done railway reserves probably about 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it.
I would see this as like a once every 2 to 4 year kind of thing. Like if someone was interested in doing it, like if Aaron said, yeah, we're training up to the Mundabiddi, let's do this, I'd be like, cool, let's do it. But I guess you kind of like within the Perth area, you're comparing it to maybe like Mundaring to Wollongong or something on the Mundabiddi if you did a car drop, or as you said, the railway reserves. Like it's fairly stiff competition in terms of that, but it is fairly unique in that it doesn't just go north-south, it goes west-east.
Yeah, so that's I guess interesting. And I think from a historical point of view, like we didn't really stop to look at all the signs, but I think if you did stop to look at all the things, it would be, if you're like a history buff kind of person who loves that sort of stuff, then this might be a trail that you'll get more out of.
Well, again, like if I was riding fit or I didn't have a quiz night to get to that night, I probably would have stopped and paid more attention to that kind of stuff. Like the foundry that we passed, there was a marker there. And I could have stopped to look at it to see what it was, but I just kind of like, we need to get going and we need to bash out the Ks. But yeah, I think if I was to do it again, I'd probably appreciate the history a bit more. In terms of hiking this, I logistically thought this was possible in 2 days, and now I would question that as from a pure enjoyment stance, because you'd have to, in order to get water, you'd have to get pretty close to Baker's Hill on that first day, and then it'd still be a 30k bash into Northam on that second day. So if I was hiking this and I was really determined, I'd probably go Mundaring to Chidlow, Lake Leschenaultia. I'd probably camp at Lake Leschenaultia, and then go to like Baker's Hill or just beyond, and then into Northam on the third day.
That's exactly what I was going to say, because I think Chidlow's got some facilities. Baker's Hill looks like there probably is something you could stay at around there. Also, there's the pie shop, so it'd be nice to start there. And then also, because it's mostly downhill, it probably isn't so bad that it's a longer stretch into town. But I would question the sanity of walking some of those stretches. Like 6.5 k's along a road is no fun walking. It's fine on a bike.
Yeah.
There's other bits as well that is just, like walking along power line roads for kilometers upon kilometers. I'd think of other things you could do. Yeah.
I actually don't think the 6.5 k's of road walking is a big issue, because you could probably walk along the fence line if you really wanted to. And if you did it in winter, spring, like the fields are going to be greener and it's going to feel a lot nicer. So that's not the big issue. It's mainly like those long straight sections where you can see your next 20 minutes of your life, and all you're doing is just literally bashing out kilometers.
But I think this is one of those cases where it's a bike trail that walkers can use rather than the other way around.
Yeah. I think any kind of rail trail, it has to be geared to riders first, walkers second. Yeah.
So, if people did ask me, I would say, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like just go do the Bibbulmun.
Yeah.
Why would you not just do the Bibbulmun instead of this?
I think you'd have to come to the end of a very long list before you decide to do this.
Yeah. Because, I would rather just do Kalamunda to Hewitt's Hill and back, or just, do
anything.
Any section of the Bibbulmun track would be more fun.
You would rather go to Helena through the burnt and cleared sections and do this, wouldn't you?
I would maybe. Oh no, I don't know. I don't know whether I would enjoy this more or Marin Road more. That would be a real test. I'd have to think about that one.
At least Marin Road, you're on your own. Like you've got some
That's
silence.
True.
This, you're kind of. I don't know. As a hiker, it would annoy me more, being in and out of these areas that are really built up, and there were sections that you could ride past and you wouldn't notice. Like there was a mattress on top of a post.
Yeah.
And a whole load of dump rubbish all along the trail, and that would annoy me to high heaven as a hiker.
Because you pass that in 10, 20 seconds, whereas that's several minutes of your life you'd see this garbage.
But yeah, it's probably something we should try and organise as a rubbish cleanup of the Kep Track, because there was so many bottles and cans and their iced coffee. I don't know what it is about Bogans. They're just dropping their rubbish everywhere.
Yep.
But when I do
Dare'll fix ya.
Yeah, when I do my Billman maintenance runs, like the 4-wheel drive track I have to look after is just full of alcohol and Dare iced coffee.
Yep.
Yeah. Have a better diet, Bogans. The Kep Track. There you go. Everything you'll ever need to know. Your post will be coming out way, way sooner than mine on the website.
Probably this year, I think.
Mine I counted today, including everything I need to do of my own plus some freelance work, is the 32nd in line to be done. So expect us around like March, April next year.
Yep. So that was the Kep Track. Thank you all for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode or any other episode of Real Trail Talk, then please rate us on whatever platform you're currently listening to us on. Ratings really help us to reach an audience, especially those who are looking to learn about the outdoors in Western Australia and Australia in general. If you had any questions or suggestions for future episodes, you can email us at realtrailtalk@gmail.com or contact us through our social media channels. Thanks again, and stay tuned for our next episode.